welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer, and I am, after nearly 40 years in business, 100% sure that the power and success of companies is heavily related to the passion of the people working for them. With Cappuccino with HR, we created a format at WeAreDevelopers, which is really designed for HR professionals, recruiters, and leaders to meet over a cup of coffee and have often discussions on everything from HR trends and leadership to sourcing of talent acquisition and to the life cycle within companies. No really set agenda, just nice conversations with people that we invite as our guests. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of a new format that we're conducting. It's called Cappuccino with HR, which I personally love because I'm really in love with coffee. So coffee is I'm a big fan of different kind of taste of coffee. So I really love that. And we said, okay, what could we start with? And the first episode is always probably the most difficult one. And I'm really happy to have some phenomenal guests today. And they are internal. I mean, they're all working for me. That's pretty fine to have them in a team. And except John, who is a really old friend of mine. But I should introduce you in a minute. We are doing a big survey every year. We're doing a developer survey, which we use to really bridge two worlds. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of stereotypes out. And that was the reason why we started a couple of years ago to conduct the first survey, to really get a kind of a glimpse and a clue what's going on there, what's important for developers. And we really proud to present the results every single year. And we've got a really nice round. And it's Adnan, who was there from the beginning. So I think he's the master of our surveys if it comes to setting them up and running them. We did it quite for a long time. It's John, a good old friend of mine. I met John at my previous company working for Stepstone, and John is in the business for a hell of a lot of years, but probably you can add some words there yourself later on. And it's Ivana, and Ivana is part of our B2B marketing team, and Ivana was the master of ceremony for this year's away. And we will come in detail what we did and why we did it and how we did it. So really thank you very much for joining me and being my guests today. And I really try to host you in the most friendly and most fancy way. But before we start, probably we can just make a quick round, and I would ask ladies first, Ivana, to say probably one or two sentences about you, and then John, and then Adnan.
Thank you, Rudi. It's really great to be part of this round, especially because I worked so closely with Adnan and John in building the survey. We really did some interesting, we really found some interesting insights. And yeah, but because you asked me what I was doing, so I am actually in the marketing team here at WeAreDevelopers. I do everything that is related to digital, so from content creating to also promoting it. So I'm really happy to be part of this round today.
Thank you very much, Ivana.
Yeah, thanks, Ivana, and thanks, Rudi. I'm delighted to be here having a cappuccino with you. But yeah, as Rudi said, I've been in the business a long time. I'm not so old, Rudi. You can stop saying that, but you know, I've been around a bit, and yeah, I've worked in job boards since the late 1990s in the UK, and this is great because I'm coming back to a tech-related community here at WeAreDevelopers. And that's where I started out with CW Jobs, which is still is a UK job board for IT professionals. So kind of full circle for me. The difference being, of course, I'm now a massive fan of communities above job boards because I believe they deliver more value in the long term when it comes to hiring certainly valuable professionals. Really like working on this survey. It's shown us some great results. I'm sure we'll get into it later on, but I love that. I also love attending the World Conference in Berlin, which was just mind-blowing from the sheer scale, the content, the conversations I was having with both recruiters and developers was just phenomenal. So yeah, really pleased to be here. Expand on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking your time. And Adnan, as you are the dinosaur of WeAreDevelopers in this round, yeah, even if you look like 17 or 18, so
yeah, I take a lot of beauty sleep. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's a real honor that we kick in this new format, and I'm very happy to be here. And as you said, I've been with WeAreDevelopers for quite some time, and mostly I'm working in new markets, engaging the new services from WeAreDevelopers, exploring new opportunities, and of course, I've been overseeing the survey that we want to talk about today from the very beginning. And of course, the last one was a real reboot, because we had the new colleagues such as Ivana and John, and that brought a super fresh energy. And I'm very, very happy that we are discussing the results today.
Okay, thanks for this quick introduction. And I really want to start with the first question that I want to raise. And historically, as you started doing it, I want to raise it to Adnan. Adnan, what was the basic idea? I mean, I mentioned it briefly, but what was the basic idea why we conducted this survey, we started conducting this survey?
Yeah, I think the major hypothesis was that we want to do something that is very our own. So a genuine survey that basically brings in focus developers who are much in demand, and basically they are continuously in demand from the company perspective and recruiting. And that's why we call them wanted. And on the other hand, you have companies who are really, really trying to reach out to them, but with a very small or difficult way to make a success. And we call them misunderstood. So there is a gap between these two groups, and we wanted to create a survey that tries to find an answer, or at least a clue, how to get these two groups together to understand each other. And of course, there are a lot of surveys out there covering the topics that are important for developers, but we didn't want to ask the question, what is the most popular coding language, and what's the type of your seniority, and why do you want to relocate or not? We wanted to be very there and to ask the questions that no one wants to ask. And therefore, that's something that we managed to keep with us for quite some time, and we'll continue to raise these questions that are sometimes a bit cheeky, but sometimes they scratch the surface that enough to create discussion. And from out the discussion, I think we can come up to solutions and solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. And as there's many studies out, and everybody is conducting some surveys and studies, just to give the audience a clue and a glimpse of the size of the study. Ivana, may I ask you to give a kind of a quick overview about the target audience and the size of the study and some demographic data?
Of course. Of course. Yeah, so about the methodology of the study. So like Adnan mentioned, we basically wanted this year to have both sides. We wanted to interview HR professionals, more specifically C-level managers and recruiters. And on the other hand, we wanted to ask developers about their opinions. So what we did is we conducted two surveys. The first one, we interviewed 1,200 developers. So more specifically, those are IT professionals from all levels. So we have junior developers, we had mid-level developers, but we also had team leads and senior developers across all kinds of industries. And we basically did online interviews that we conducted with the help of an agency called Focus. And the fieldwork period was actually in the first half of the year, so it was in Q2 2024. And the survey area for the developer survey was basically across whole Europe, including the United Kingdom. So in the second survey, we interviewed 150 C-level managers and recruiters. And we covered very similar areas like in the developer survey, but we focused a bit more on the locations France, Germany, again, the UK and the Netherlands. As we're also very present in those markets. So, and just to make sure what topics we also covered during our questionnaires, and those can be pretty much summarized into work-life balance, recruitment, sustainability, mental health, career growth, and inclusivity.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And you mentioned it, and that's my question to John now. We also put focus on the UK. Was there any specifics in the briefing? Was there any specifics depending on the market? I mean, there's due to the Brexit that everybody knows? There's a different kind of situation.
Yeah, I think we wanted to find out about mobility, you know, for workers in the UK, and also the expectation of mobility from recruiters in the UK. So, you know, are they offshoring more? Are they nearshoring? How does remote work affect that, for example? And are they targeting specific areas of Europe, for example, for different types of skills? So, you know, I think the UK, you know, is a unique market in some ways, but in other ways, there are some very strong parallels with how developers feel right across, you know, the European continent, if you like, including the UK. And there's some strong parallels on how the challenges that recruiters have, whether they're based in London or they're based in Madrid or they're based in Paris, based in Berlin or Vienna. So I think we wanted to see if there were similarities and differences, and there are both similarities and differences in this survey. And I think that was especially pleasing because when you look at other surveys, you mentioned people ask different questions, but you know, you can look at surveys from the likes of Hayes or CBRE, for example, from the States, and you know, there's some strong parallels in what they talk about. You know, the difficulty in finding and engaging with top-level tech talent is a major consideration strategically for a lot of businesses. So anything that you can do to talk to both sides of the equation, if you like, people who are tasked with hiring and the people who may want to be hired or, you know, need to be hired, that's a good thing. So I think this is what this survey does really well. It talks to both sides and tries to bridge that gap. I think we even called it, you know, decoding the gap, right? So, you know, developer terms, right? Decoding the gap between the IT, the software developer professional and the professional recruiters that are trying, you know, more and more finding it hard to just advertise to find these people. I mean, you know, that was one of the big things that came out, that, you know, so few of these software developers are actively searching for work that, you know, if you're just trying to advertise to them, it's almost impossible to pull the talent you need.
Do you think, do you personally think that there's more differences between UK and the rest of Europe on the HR side or the company side, or more on the developer side? Do you know what I mean?
I think there's probably more on the developer side from what we saw in the survey, actually. I think the challenges faced by the HR, the TA teams, you know, the talent attraction teams, the recruiters, you know, the recruitment agencies, for example, I think they face the similar challenges, whether you're in, as I say, whether you're in Berlin or whether you're in the UK. Maybe the UK has some specific challenges now with Brexit and the right to work, etc. But they seem to have been addressed by remote working and, you know, nearshoring, for example. So I think everybody's facing a tough challenge finding great software development talent. And I think great software development talent also knows its value. Therefore, you've got to really show them why you're a place that they should come and work, which is very different from just advertising to them.
Did we find something, or was there something in which we didn't expect? I mean, that's a question to probably all of you. Some really surprising fact we said, okay, this was not foreseeable.
Yeah, I think the most fascinating result for me is that I think that the whole market of supply and demand is somehow resetting without any notion, like a very hidden way. And as developers want to learn about the job opportunities by using LinkedIn. So that was quite shocking to me, you know, because not long ago, the holy grail of recruiting was the referrals. And maybe they're oversaturated with the number of referrals, because if I want to refer to John that there is an open position, maybe I like this company just because of the color of their logo, and I think John is a good fit. So there was maybe a lot of misconnections in between developers and companies, and now they want to go with the LinkedIn, where they can, when they see the offer, they can go and investigate what this job role is and what this company does and how they foresee the future in their expansion way. And there's also something that happened like 2 years ago. I remember at the World Congress we had a test where we were doing the career advising for developers, and there was like long queues, like thousands of people waiting to get their CVs treated. So nowadays, developers, according to our survey, wants to showcase their technical abilities through the CV, through the resume, which before, year 2-3 ago, there was the only demand for technical tests. And nowadays, if you see, like, every company is basically doing several technical tests on different interview stages. So I think they're oversaturated with this idea, knowing that CVs at this point, because of the advancements in ATS services now can scan the keywords, and CVs are becoming the results driven. So I think this suits them more because they can now communicate their technical abilities through the results, through the actual tasks they have been doing in a previous companies. And I think it's kind of like a change of mindset, and companies are quite following that up well. As maybe Ivana can tell you more about this, there is a resolution between developers and companies that they want to lower the number of interview stages. And so far, we asked them, okay, are you okay with 1 step, 2 step, 3 step? And we have a dominant response where everybody wants to do it in 2 step, which is, I asked that on a conference during summer, like, who's for this, who's pro this idea? And a lot of people from companies raised the hand saying, we are already doing this. That was a shock also to me, because I thought I'm inventing something new, I'm saying something new. No, that's already in business. So I think we have to say this out loud quite more often, and to encourage both sides to be bold in their intentions. How to say?
Sorry, Rudy, I just want to come in because something Adnan said really was surprising to me too, was the reduction in the number of interview stages that both sides wanted. So both developers and the hiring, the recruiters wanted. But I also wonder whether they're actually referencing, we'd like sort of almost like 2 face-to-face interviews, because there's a number of other tests and skill sets and even soft skills and as well as hard skills being tested in different scenarios. And whether they see that as an interview stage or they see that as just part of the experience, I think is an interesting point. So for me, when I was talking to people again at the summer conference, software developers, asking those kind of questions, it was like, I'd like a 2-stage interview. And what does that mean? It means I've met the people I'm working with twice. Yeah, I might do some other tests, but I see those as just test and skill based. So I'm fine to do those. I can set aside an hour to do that at any time in the next 2 days. It's not really an interview. I'm just showcasing my skills. So I thought that was really interesting. And the great news, of course, is that the recruiters also agree and said, yeah, actually, we don't need a 7-stage interview, because I think, when you did the survey a year ago, everybody was saying it's 3 stages, right? 3 stages is that premium preference. And now they're saying actually it's 2. And I think that might be the advancement of technology, enabling recruiters to make hiring decisions based on skills tests, etc.
Ivana, what did you find surprising, or what do you see as a trend if we take the results? Is there something which, say, companies should focus on because it's becoming more and more important for developers?
Absolutely. I think that Adnan and John actually raised a couple of very interesting points, also talking about the fact that developers and HR professionals should be more and more moving towards each other and finding more alignment, not only in their expectations, but also in their communications. I mean, we've seen in previous Tech Recruiting Academy episodes, which is our online webinar, where we discussed a lot of miscommunications and also what people expected from each other. And interview stages was something that was coming up in every single conversation, no matter what tech skill the developer was focusing on which tech skill the recruiter was specialized in. And that's something that for me was the most important trend. And it was actually very refreshing to see those gaps between the HR side and the developer side, because that was actually the main intent also of the survey, of actually highlighting this gap, because we knew there was a gap between both sides, but the questions actually highlighted finally point blank, here are the facts, this is what developers think, these are what HR professionals think. And one finding that actually stood out to me, not because the data was different, but rather because the data was repeating itself, was the notion of salary transparency. I mean, there's something very straightforward. Everyone talks about the fact that job ads should have a transparent salary, so that, candidates know what to expect when they take on the interview stages, because like we discussed, the tech industry actually requires multiple interview stages, because you have that one-on-one conversation, you get to know each other, then you have the soft skills, you have the technical assessments. So the fact that 60% of developers, even 2 years after, so we asked those questions previously in the 2023 survey, 2022 survey, 60% still say that this is the number one priority when they're considering a position, whether they're actively looking for a job or not. And then on the other hand, we have only 40% of C-level managers and recruiters that say that they're indicating their salaries for their open position to appeal to the developers. So there we can see that there's so many lost opportunities that really need to be addressed. And I think that one crucial trend that really needs to happen is that companies not only know what developers want, but actually address those issues.
I mean, it was really strong for me, that point as well, because I think if you've got 60% of recruiters not being transparent about salary to the people they're trying to attract, you're really playing hide and seek, aren't you? Which is, in a market that's really tough to recruit in, why would you want to play hide and seek with the candidate? It's crazy. So I think that's a big gap that should be addressed by the recruiter.
I mean, if I talk at conferences to HR people and companies, I always have the discussion, if it comes to developers, that full remote is the only topic which is really interesting. Is there any findings on this kind of full remote hybrid coming out of the survey, and the trend, if you compare, probably Adnan can answer that, if you compare 2019, 2021, 22, is there kind of a change there, or how important is this kind of full remote topic for developers and or companies?
Yeah, I think the developers are getting more aware of the situation, where now their statement is, okay, we are aiming for flexibility, like full remote. Understood, I cannot do that because I really need to see my colleagues. The social dimension is very important, and that some meetings need to happen in person. And I think what was before, 2 years, 3 years ago, while we were in the middle of pandemics, of course, remote work was the only way how you could attract developers, of course. But now, as the situation changes, I think that the emphasis is on flexibility, which means not to provide flexible work, but to give the options for developers to choose in between. Is it a 4-day work week model? Is it 3 days at home, 2 at the office? Is it to design something new, some new hybrid model? And that's where I think companies are failing right now. We have seen a lot of negative news especially during summer, from the big tech companies where they were resolute. Thank God they gave at least the deadline where that can happen, where that will happen, starting from 1st January and onwards. So you can at least prepare yourself and figure out how to take care of your kids and to reshape your life and do the new set of rules for yourself. I think that's a good point, but the bad point is that they do not want to communicate the flexibility, even though all the data shows that the productivity levels are even raising or staying the same in comparison when you go to office. So why now? Why is this the question that we have to discuss when the data shows anonymously that the remote work or flexible work or any type of new work works for employees, especially for tech, where the results are driven by the deadlines, by the deliveries, and not about the actual productivity when you have to go to the fabric and come up with something that has to be done on site. So that's kind of sad, but I don't know how we can tackle that and how we can turn the tides. Yeah. I think it's on WeAreDevelopers to raise attention and to raise those voices and be continuous, non-stop, bombard with the data and with incentives to make the thing stay.
Yeah, I think this is probably worth a whole survey in itself, right? So
exactly,
because and the reason being is it's a really important topic for both sides of the equation, right? And this is what WeAreDevelopers are trying to do, is bridge these gaps, right? So I think there could be a whole, but if you look at what's come out of this survey and you look at what's kind of come out in the news or news recently that 1 in 4 of developers say, look, I don't see any reason at all to go into the office, right? There's there's nothing that I need from an office space to help me do my job perfectly. And that was certainly echoed with conversations I had, at the conference with developers when I asked about that, because it's very topical. So when you look at that and say, 25% no, so that, but that also leaves 75% that say there might be some value. So it's probably around clear signposting of what is available to people in terms of flexibility of work, and also clear signposting of what's expected in terms of productivity and project work from there. And, tech people, developers especially, have a great skill set in working to projects and working to deadlines. That's their world, right? Yeah. But then you look at sort of, wider in the marketplace, and you've seen people like, where it hasn't worked so well, or has worked well, hasn't worked so well. So if you think about some of the, companies, some of the big tech companies, like, Slack, take Slack. Slack's a great one, right? So it's a remote first culture by its very nature of its brand, right? But it said to people, look, we need you to come in 3 days a week. And I think there was some initial resistance from that. But actually, it looks now that it's working well for them, and there's better collaboration, stronger sense of team culture, productivity, etc. So they've kind of addressed it and said, yeah, look, you don't have to come back all the time, but there's some things you need to do. And I think Apple was very vocal about getting people back into the office. Yeah. We need to have the in-person collaboration. We've got to have the innovation that only being together can do. And I think while they've had some challenges, they seem to be quite positive in what they've said about it in terms of employee satisfaction, productivity. But then you've had other companies which are big, which have really struggled. I think Twitter is a good example. So good old Elon's mandating, that's Elon's way, right? Mandating every Twitter employee must return to the office full time, and that obviously got great backlash, right? I mean, a lot of people left,
because you said you have to come to office tomorrow. At least the
come to the office tomorrow. Don't bother, right?
Prepare yourself.
And so, and I think that really shows that it's a risk, to force employees back into the office without considering the preference or needs of what they want, So, but Microsoft as well, I think, they initially pushed for that kind of hybrid work model, but it's really faced challenges in getting people to come back to the office. And I think that suggests that even the biggest tech giants can struggle to enforce office return policies, especially in the face of employee resistance. So I think there's some factors you have to consider for success or failure of both remote work or returning to work or hybrid work. And I think, the first one's like the company culture, I think if you've got a strong culture of collaboration, open interaction, you're probably more likely to succeed in bringing people back into the office, because people will miss that and people will value that. So if you had that in the first place, you can probably get people to come back like, Slack did 3 days a week, for example. Yeah. But then you've got employee preference. And this survey shows that, a lot of them strongly prefer remote or hybrid working. So if you enforce a return to the office, then that's going to naturally decrease morale, productivity, lead to attrition. And then you've got the nature of the job or the project they're working on. Some jobs or projects require that in-person collaboration more than others. So do you have to be flexible around the frequency of meetings or the type of project they're working on from being in the office? And I think it all comes down to that flexibility of offering your people the flexibility in terms of their work hours or location. And that can really help mitigate, negative impacts. So if you say to people, you don't need to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you just need to get the job done. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that can be really, really empowering to, especially I think, to developers and tech people. But I think ultimately the success or failure of a return to the office policy depends on a variety of these factors, and there's no one size fits all. You've got to understand your culture, your employee preferences, the nature of the work they're doing, and what flexibility you're prepared to offer. And I think that's something I think we should do a whole new survey on, and just. I think people would eat
us.
Okay, I'm looking at the watch, and I mean it was fantastic. I mean we already had 29 minutes together, and I think it could last for another 1.5 hours, but we want to keep it short and simple. So I have a final round of questions, and I would ask you, all of you, to give one tip, probably coming out of the results of the study, that we could give to our B2B audience for probably making it a little bit easier to solve the issue of getting good talent. So I would like to start with Ivana. If you look on the study, what do you think could be one tip? And I would ask John and Adnan as well to give probably one final tip coming out of the results of the survey, which we could probably forward to our audience.
I think for me, the main tip would be to, and it might sound obvious, but we're seeing it on a daily business that a lot of companies are still not implementing that, is before reaching out to developers, really trying to understand the target audience. I mean, you don't have to be a tech guru or a developer guru, but I think that just having a look about what is a priority for developers. So work-life balance practices, what's important to them, flexibility, remote work options, salary transparency in a job ad. I mean, latest at the interview stage, they will ask you about the salary. So include that as soon as you can. And then also ask questions. I mean, you have developers in your company, ask them what's important to them, what they feel like should be a higher priority in the company. Also create a company culture that is also has room for developer preferences. So I think that's a really important thing that I would give to any company, just understanding, and then kind of also looking where developers are hanging out. I mean, there's a lot of communities out there. I mean, we're one of the biggest communities out there as well, where you can kind of see what developers like to talk about, what their daily problematics are. So just kind of researching and reading and also listening, I think that could really go a long way for companies.
Thank you very much, Ivana. John, what's your tip?
Yeah, it's hard to get it down to one. I mean, I echo everything Ivana said there. But I think, I'd almost say this: forget the active candidates, right? There's so few of them. 70% of developers are passive talent waiting to be engaged with, not advertised to, right? That, I think, is a big eye-opener for people. And it's hard to do, and you've got to invest more in doing it. And I think there's a few things you can do, which is share valuable content, industry news, your company updates, your job postings with the salaries and benefits on them, but share the thought leadership that comes from you as a recruiter, you as a talent attraction team, you as a company, and engage in conversations with communities, answer their questions, participate in discussions, offer advice, especially if you can get your own developers engaged in that as well. Developers love talking to developers and sharing ideas. So why not use your own talent to help promote yourself as an employer of choice? And I think you've got to build those relationships. You've got to connect with tech professionals on LinkedIn, on WeAreDevelopers, on other community platforms. And you've got to network with the influencers in that industry as well, and show yourself to be an influencer. Attend the events, attend the virtual events, attend the real events. And I think above all, if you're going to do that and look for that 70% passive candidate, you need to be authentic. And you need to be transparent. You've got to be yourself, show the personality of yourself and the business and the genuine interest you have in the tech community. Be transparent, be honest about the company, the job opportunity and the salary. And above all, avoid salesy tactics. Focus on building relationships rather than just hard selling your company. So I'd say that's my advice for people looking to hire tech talent right now.
Thanks, John. And Adnan, last but not least.
Yeah, I think I just have an advice, like get out of your comfort zone. And that's the very beginning. And for example, do a simple A/B test where on A side is the things you're actually doing from a hiring strategy or employer branding strategy, just do what you do. But on the B side, try something new, maybe out of these results or any other results that look kind of shady or, okay, I'm not comfortable with this, and then just compare. And I'm sure that you will see that there are things that will contribute to the hiring plans or to any type of plan that you are conducting at the moment. And as Ivana said, if you don't trust us, talk to your developers, and you will see that the data kind of overlaps because the data is so strong. Like every question we asked, it has the output of 60%. So you have to listen to the data and to the numbers and then test them in a reality, of course, to get the verification, the validation of it. And I believe that's the problem that also you already noticed that B2B audience never talks to developers. They kind of afraid of them. We don't speak the same language. It's not that we are having a different protocols. We talk the same the language in the same way. So just get out of the comfort zone and try something new. And I'm sure there will be the feedback that will encourage you to dare even more gradually. You don't have to invent the hot water at once.
It was a really pleasure to have you all in the first episode of our Cappuccino with HR. It was great fun for me, so thank you very much. Final question to Ivana, because I mean, if somebody's interested in getting the results of the study in more details, what are the ways to grab the pieces that we have produced? What's the easiest way?
So the easiest way is we'll actually add a link. So if you're listening on audio, we will have the link of the survey in the description down below. If you're watching on video, we'll actually blend in a QR code so that you can easily scan with your mobile device. And if you're looking to just browse around a bit, you'll see our website also in video streamed down below.
Yeah, thank you very much for being my guests. It was fun with you, and I really enjoyed this session. And I just want to announce the next one. I think the next one is already planned, and it will be Fan Jimenez from Business Insider. And so please stay tuned and have a nice remaining day. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a lovely cappuccino with all of you. Have a good day.